I married Sophia thinking I had found the love of my life. She was young, beautiful, full of energy, the kind of woman who could light up a room just by walking into it. But marriage has a way of revealing truths that dating never does. In the beginning, I told myself her wild, carefree spirit was just a phase, something she would grow out of once we settled into our lives together. I was wrong. Before I continue, let me appreciate my subscribers. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button to help bring more inspiring and dramatic stories. Now, let's begin. Sophia never slowed down. She never grew into the role of a wife. Instead of coming home to me, she spent her nights out with her friends, partying, drinking, and living like she had no responsibilities. I tried to be patient. I tried to understand. But after 2 years of marriage, I felt more like a roommate than a husband. It was a Thursday night when everything shifted. Sophia had gone out again, leaving me alone in our quiet house. I sat on the couch, beer in hand, staring blankly at the TV. I wasn't even watching, just listening to the background noise, trying to ignore the emptiness creeping in. Then the front door opened. At first, I thought Sophia had come home early, but when I turned, I saw her standing there. Charlotte Moore. My mother-in-law. She had always been an elegant woman, tall, graceful, with striking blue eyes that held more wisdom than I ever saw in her daughter. Even though she was in her late 40s, she carried herself with confidence, the kind that came from experience, from truly knowing oneself. Unlike Sophia, who dressed in whatever trendy outfit she could find, Charlotte wore a simple black dress that hugged her figure just enough to make me notice. "Jason," she greeted warmly, setting her suitcase down. "I hope I'm not interrupting your evening." I stood up quickly, shaking off the ridiculous thoughts that flashed through my mind. "Not at all. I wasn't doing anything important." She smiled, that same warm smile I had seen countless times before. But tonight, for some reason, it felt different. Charlotte had come to stay with us for a few weeks. Sophia had told me last week, but, like most things she said, I barely listened. Now, standing in front of Charlotte, I suddenly felt like I was waking up from a fog. "You look tired," she said, tilting her head as she studied me. "Long day?" I let out a dry laugh. "Something like that." She gave me a knowing look, as if she already understood. Maybe she did. I helped her bring her things upstairs to the guest room, making small talk along the way. She had been living in Florida but decided to take some time off from work to visit us. She didn't mention Sophia much, and I didn't bring her up either. The truth was, I didn't even know where my wife was at that moment. As I carried her bag into the room, Charlotte placed a gentle hand on my arm. It was a simple touch, innocent even, but something about it sent a shiver through me. I glanced down at her fingers before meeting her eyes again. "Jason," she said softly, "are you okay?" The concern in her voice nearly broke me. I hadn't realized how much I needed someone to ask me that. I forced a smile. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just tired." She nodded but didn't seem convinced. "Well, if you ever need to talk, I'm here." I swallowed hard, suddenly feeling like I needed to get out of that room before I did something stupid. "Thanks," I muttered before turning away. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Sophia was God knows where. But for the first time in a long time, my mind wasn't on my wife. It was on her mother. And that was dangerous. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and something cooking in the kitchen. For a moment, I thought Sophia had finally decided to act like a wife, but when I walked downstairs, I saw Charlotte standing at the stove, flipping pancakes like she had lived here forever. She turned and smiled. "Good morning, Jason. I hope you don't mind, I made breakfast." I hadn't had a home-cooked breakfast in months. Sophia barely cooked. She preferred takeout or whatever trendy brunch spot her friends dragged her to. Seeing Charlotte in my kitchen, wearing a soft blue robe that somehow made her look even more beautiful, stirred something in me. "I don't mind at all," I said, grabbing a mug and pouring myself a cup of coffee. "This is nice." She set a plate of pancakes in front of me, then sat down across the table. I figured I should cook while I'm here. You work hard. You shouldn't have to live off of frozen meals and leftovers. I chuckled, shaking my head. I don't think anyone's ever said that to me before. Her eyes softened. You deserve to be taken care of too, Jason. I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting. There was something in the way she looked at me, something I tried to ignore. The moment passed quickly when we heard the front door open. Sophia stumbled in, her makeup smudged, hair messy, and heels dangling from her fingers. She barely even looked at me before walking straight upstairs. Charlotte sighed. She was out all night? I let out a dry laugh. What else is new? She hesitated, then spoke carefully. Marriage isn't easy, Jason. But she's still young. Maybe she just needs time to grow up. I scoffed, stirring my coffee. How much time? Because it feels like I married a girl, not a woman. She didn't argue. Instead, she reached over and placed her hand over mine. It was meant to be comforting, but the second I felt her warmth, my body tensed. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that made my pulse race. She felt it too. She pulled her hand away quickly, clearing her throat. I should check on Sophia. I nodded, watching as she left the kitchen, leaving me sitting there, staring at my coffee, my heart pounding. One evening, after Sophia had left for another night out, Charlotte and I sat on the back porch, sharing a bottle of wine. The air was warm, the kind of summer night that made everything feel more alive. She laughed at something I said, and for a moment, I just stared at her. The way the soft light of the porch lamp illuminated her face, the way her lips curled when she smiled, it was mesmerizing. You're staring, she teased, raising an eyebrow. I smirked. Maybe I like looking at you. Her expression faltered, just for a second. Then she turned away, taking a slow sip of wine. Jason, we can't. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Can't what? She sighed, shaking her head. Whatever this is, whatever you are feeling, it's dangerous. I reached out, gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She inhaled sharply but didn't pull away. Then why does it feel so right? I whispered. Her eyes met mine, and in that moment, I saw it, the hesitation, the fear, and the desire. She stood up abruptly, stepping back. I need to go inside. I didn't stop her. I let her walk away, but as she disappeared into the house, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. I couldn't stop thinking about her. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was dangerous. But the more I tried to fight it, the stronger it became. Charlotte wasn't just my mother-in-law anymore. She was everything my wife wasn't. She was warm where Sophia was cold. Attentive where Sophia was absent. She looked at me like I mattered, like I wasn't just some forgotten husband in a dying marriage. And I wanted her. God help me, I wanted her. I found myself watching her every move. The way her hair fell over her shoulder when she read in the evenings. The way she bit her lip when she was deep in thought. The way she sighed like she was carrying a weight too heavy for one person. And I wanted to be the one to lift it. I wanted to be the one she turned to. But Charlotte wasn't giving in. Every time I got close, she pulled away. Every time I touched her, she stiffened. Every time our eyes met, she ran. But I wasn't giving up. I had tasted possibility, and I refused to let it slip away. That night, I found her alone in the kitchen, washing dishes. Sophia had gone out again, probably wouldn't be back until morning. The house was quiet. Just the two of us. I leaned against the counter, watching her. She knew I was there, but she refused to look at me. You're avoiding me, I said. She kept scrubbing a plate. No, I'm not. I smirked. Liar. Her shoulders tensed. Jason, stop. I stepped closer. Stop what? She finally turned, glaring at me. This. Whatever this is, it has to stop. I reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. You don't really want that. She inhaled sharply. Yes, I do. I smiled. Then why are you trembling? She exhaled, frustrated. Because you won't leave me alone. I leaned in, my voice softer now. Because you don't want me to. Her breath hitched. She was breaking. I could feel it. But she wasn't ready to fall. Not yet. So she ran again. She stormed past me, through the living room, heading toward her bedroom. I followed. Jason, don't, she warned, not looking back. I grabbed her wrist, gently but firmly. She froze. Slowly, she turned. Her eyes, God, those eyes, were filled with every emotion she was too afraid to say out loud. I stepped closer. Close enough that she could feel my breath on her skin. Tell me to stop, I whispered. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. But the words never came. Instead, she whispered, I hate you. I smiled. No, you don't. She swallowed hard. This is wrong. I cupped her face, running my thumb over her cheek. Then why does it feel so right? She squeezed her eyes shut, shaking her head. You're my son-in-law. I leaned in, my lips brushing against hers. I don't care. She shuddered. I do. Liar, I murmured against her mouth. And then. I draw closer to kiss her. Then. She kissed me. Not soft. Not hesitant. But hungry. Desperate. Like she had been fighting a battle she finally lost. And I knew, in that moment, she was mine. She could pretend it was a mistake. She could tell herself it would never happen again. But I knew the truth. We had crossed a line. And there was no turning back. Charlotte tried to pretend it never happened. The next morning, she avoided me. Wouldn't meet my eyes at breakfast. Wouldn't respond when my fingers brushed hers reaching for the coffee pot. Wouldn't acknowledge the way her lips had trembled against mine the night before. But I wasn't about to let her bury it. That night, when Sophia had gone out again, I found Charlotte standing by the window in the living room, arms crossed tightly over her chest. She heard me approach but didn't turn. You can't run from this, I murmured. Her jaw clenched. Yes, I can. I stepped closer. Close enough to smell her perfume, close enough to see the rise and fall of her chest as she tried to steady herself. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair off her shoulder. She shivered. You feel this, I whispered. She let out a shaky breath. It's wrong. I tilted my head. Then why aren't you pulling away? She turned to face me, her expression tortured. Because I don't trust myself with you. I smiled, slow and knowing. Then stop fighting it. Her breath hitched. Jason. I cupped her face, running my thumb along her cheek. Tell me you don't want this, and I'll walk away. She swallowed hard. I waited. She didn't say a word. And then. She grabbed my shirt, pulling me into a kiss so fierce, so desperate, it knocked the air from my lungs. Her hands tangled in my hair. My fingers dug into her waist. She wasn't just kissing me. She was giving in. And I knew, in that moment, she was mine. For weeks, we stole moments like this. In the dark corners of the house. In whispered conversations when Sophia wasn't looking. In the kitchen late at night, where she would stand so close, I could feel the warmth of her skin, her breath uneven when I reached for her. She was fighting it. But every time I touched her, she lost. And I won. But secrets? They have a way of coming out. And ours was about to explode. One night, after another stolen kiss in the hallway, I stepped into the living room only to come face to face with Sophia. She was sitting on the couch, staring at me. Her eyes flicked from my unbuttoned collar. to my lipstick-stained shirt, to the hallway behind me, where Charlotte was still hiding in the shadows. And then she laughed. Not angry. Not hurt. Just disbelieving. "Oh my God," she breathed, shaking her head. "You've got to be kidding me." My pulse pounded in my ears. Sophia. She wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking past me. At Charlotte, who had just stepped into the light, her face pale, her lips still swollen from kissing from me. For the first time in my life, I saw Sophia break. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Instead, she let out a hollow chuckle. "Wow," she whispered. "I always knew our marriage was falling apart." "But my own mother?" Charlotte stepped forward. "Sophia, please, let me explain." "Explain?" Sophia's voice was sharp, venomous. "What exactly do you think you can say to make this better?" "Huh?" She turned to me, eyes burning with betrayal. "You couldn't find some random woman? You had to go after her?" I swallowed hard. "I never meant to hurt you." She let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah? Well, congratulations, Jason. Because you did." She turned back to Charlotte, voice shaking. "And you were supposed to be my mother. Not my competition." Charlotte's face crumpled. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "But it did happen, didn't it?" Sophia whispered, voice thick with emotion. Silence. Painful, suffocating silence. Then Sophia nodded, like she had finally accepted the truth. "You know what?" She straightened her shoulders, her expression unreadable. "You two deserve each other." And with that, she walked away. This time, she wasn't coming back. Sophia filed for divorce the next day. She didn't yell. She didn't beg. She just left. And Charlotte? She tried to stay. She swore we could rebuild. That we could have something real now. But something had shifted. The thrill was gone. The secrecy, the danger, the forbidden passion, everything that had pulled us together had also destroyed us. And without it, we were nothing. So in the end, she left too. And I was left alone, staring at the wreckage of my choices, wondering if love had ever really been there at all. Some mistakes you can fix. Others? They destroy everything. I thought I had found something real with Charlotte. But all I had found was ruin. Was it worth it? Maybe. Would I do it again? I still don't know. Maybe some loves are meant to burn bright. And then burn out. There's a silence that comes after destruction. Not the loud, earth-shattering kind. Not the dramatic, tear-filled kind. Just emptiness. That's what I woke up to every morning. A bed too big for one person. A house filled with ghosts of a family that once was. And a name, mine, that had become a dirty word in two women's lives. The day Sophia officially left, I stood at the doorway, watching her pack the last of her things. She didn't look at me. Didn't say a word. Just folded her clothes with the same carelessness she had folded our marriage. When she zipped up her suitcase, I finally found my voice. "Sophia." She stopped. Didn't turn, didn't breathe. Just waited. I swallowed hard. "I never wanted to hurt you." A bitter chuckle escaped her lips. She finally turned, meeting my eyes for the first time in weeks. "You didn't just hurt me, Jason. You humiliated me." My throat tightened. "I know." She nodded, as if that was all she had needed to hear. Then she picked up her bag and walked past me. No hug. No final words. Just distance. And for the first time, I realized. She wasn't just leaving the house. She was leaving me. A week later, Charlotte called. I stared at the phone for a long time before answering. "Hello." a heavy sigh on the other end. Then, her voice. I shouldn't have come here, Jason. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. Is that what you really believe? A pause. Then, softer, I don't know anymore. I ran a hand down my face. I loved you. I know. But you don't love me? Silence. A long, painful silence. Then. I wanted to. The words felt like a knife. Not because they weren't what I wanted to hear, but because I already knew. Our affair was built on passion. Temptation. The thrill of secrecy. But love? Love was something else. Something that, deep down, we never really had. And maybe, we never could. Months passed. Sophia moved on. I heard she started dating again. Charlotte disappeared. And me? I was stuck in the ruins of my own creation. Some nights, I lay awake, replaying every choice, every moment, every mistake. Would I do it differently? Would I stop myself? I don't know. Because even now, knowing everything I lost, I still remember the way Charlotte looked at me that first night. The way her lips trembled against mine. The way she whispered my name like I was something worth wanting. And maybe, for a brief moment, I was. But moments end. And all that's left are consequences. Some mistakes you can walk away from. Others? You carry them for life.